Chase me, Susie. Chase me.
Good.
No, it's
أنتقل من هنا
and you have to meet it.
إلى الحكم الشرعي في هذه
So we
العملات.
want to next part here, go on.
الدارسون لهذه العملات
So now we move to the Islamic rules.
لهم رأيان. الرأي الأول
So those who study these currencies, they have two opinions.
القول بجواز التعامل بها. يجوز التعامل
So the first opinion is that those, they say it's permissible to engage with it, transact
بها
with it.
مقايضة وتداولا. مقايضة طبعا تعرفون أنها الآن
So you can trade, exchange.
عملية دفع، تشتري أشياء بها، وتداولا في منصات
So like you know now, you can buy things with
التداول
it.
تباع وتشترى. واستند هؤلاء
And now it's basically saying you can either use it to buy things or you can use it to just trade back.
على أن الأصل في المعاملات الحل. قالوا هذه معاملة، والأصل في المعاملات
And the source of this view is from the view from the principle which is known opinion that which is mentioned in the previous fatwa we translated before, that the general rule with all things that it is halal. All actions muamalat, the general rule is halal. So Sheikh is aware of this. Sheikh is fine. Now Sheikh can apply to that, I guess.
أيضا قالوا
This is normal interaction.
لأن بعض الدول
And the general rule is that it's halal.
قد اعتمدتها،
They also say
وبعض الدول
because some countries have acknowledged it as currency. Now, when he said this, El Salvador hadn't made it legal tender. But I think Germany accepted it as a currency, Japan as well. There were some countries who did, but none of them said legal tender like El Salvador.
تدرس اعتمادها.
Which is interesting because El Salvador's made it legal tender, backed by the government. So
إذا بدأت تكتسب قوة دولية نظامية في ظن
and some countries are seeking, they're looking into
أنهم هم.
accepting it.
واضح يا إخوة؟ العلة الأولى قالوا
So it started to take, it becomes stronger in terms of
لأن الأصل في المعاملات
as they
الحل.
as they
العلة الثانية قالوا لأنها بدأت تكتسب قوة نظامية فاعتمدتها بعض الدول مثل ألمانيا وبعض دول أوروبا.
So two things. The reason why they say it's halal, they say in the first opinion, the reason why they say it's halal is two reasons. Number one, because the general rule of everything is halal. And number two, because some countries are beginning
بعض دول أمريكا الجنوبية وبعض الدول تدرس اعتمادها. وقالوا أيضا لأن الراجح من أقوال
Yes, he mentions Germany, some other European countries, some South American countries.
العلماء أن ما تعارف الناس على المقايضة به كان نقدا. فلو تعارف الناس على المقايضة
And also the third evidence is that the most strongest opinion amongst the scholars is that whatever the people deem as a medium of exchange, a medium you can exchange, conduct business with, then it becomes money. So if we all agree to use cigarettes as money, then it all becomes money. That's what it said. That's the Sheikh mentioned, which actually was used to
الجلود
in the 70s.
صار الجلد نقدا. وقد تعارف الناس اليوم على المقايضة بالعملات.
So if people come together to accept skin, as money, then money
الإلكترونية الرقمية. والرأي الثاني
So likewise, if people come to use cryptos for exchange, then If you accept it, then it becomes money. Which is the irony, because if you're saying for it to become halal, people have to accept it. If people want to accept it, and this is halal, it becomes like a loop. I'm not going to say it's halal until everyone accepts it, but I'm not going to allow anyone to accept it until it's halal. It becomes a funny loop. So the question is, why would people accept it if you're telling them it's haram? Unless everyone accepts it and does sin by doing the haram, and then only enough people do the sin haram, then it becomes halal. Does that make sense? If the evidence that it becomes halal to use as a transaction is the fact that people use it, that means before that happened, it was haram. So they were engaging in the haram up until that haram becomes so prevalent that now it becomes halal. It becomes a funny self-loop view kind of thing. At some point, someone has to use it.
القول بتحريم التعامل بها مطلقا.
Second opinion. So the first opinion is halal, and he gave us evidence. The origin of everything is halal. Governments are accepting it and begin to accept it, and whatever people accept as money is money.
فلا يجوز التعامل بها وذلك.
The second opinion is that it is prohibited to engage in it entirely.
لأمور. طبعا.
And it's not permissible to deal with it at all, and for that are evidences. Now you bring evidence.
الإفتاء بالتحريم.
And this is important to pay attention to, the evidence why it is haram. Because remember I said to you, the perception. If the perception is correct, then in theory the fatwa should be correct. If the fatwa is wrong, but the perception is wrong, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have, the fatwa can't be right.
صدر من جهات رسمية كثيرة. يعني يتذكر من جهة يعني الإفتاء في مصر.
So the Sheikh preempts any objection by saying this fatwa or this opinion is held by many religious establishments, governmental establishments, like the muftis of the religious establishment, mufti establishment in Egypt, also one in Turkey. Add to that, Palestine as well also gave a fatwa of tahrim. And I think Indonesia, there's some ulama in Indonesia, they said that also the major scholars of Indonesia said it's haram. So there are many major organizations, muftis said
في تركيا أفتوا بالتحريم. ومرد هذا التحريم يعود إلى أمور. الأمر الأول أنه لا قيمة لها حقيقية، بل قيمتها بالمعيار الاقتصادي صفر.
There's no real value to it. So I guess it's come back to the whole intrinsic value and non-intrinsic value issue. So go back to the topic, the discussion we had earlier on about the intrinsic, non-intrinsic value. Let's have a look. It was said that gold and silver has intrinsic value in it. That's number one. And Bitcoin has no intrinsic value in it. Let me rephrase that. And let me see if it makes sense. Let's see if you can combine the two things together. Gold has intrinsic properties that we value in it. We attach value to gold because of these intrinsic properties. And we say intrinsic, meaning that it's part of the actual atoms of the gold. So if gold, if I had a bar of gold and I was able to change its properties to now make it like water, so it's no longer, it's transparent, it's no longer solid, whatnot, and it's just like water, then the value it no longer has a value. I mean, literally, if you think about it, if you actually got gold, actually you can do that. Imagine you got gold and somehow you was able to put it into a machine and split the atom of gold into two parts. So now you have lithium and now you have carbon, whatnot. Because you split the actual atom, you've changed the intrinsic properties, and it's no longer now gold, and its value is now changed. Likewise, if I got gold, if I got copper and I got lithium, and I combine those two atoms together until it became a gold atom, it's now gained certain properties, and it makes it like gold. So it has properties within it that we have value, we attach value to it. From the values of gold are values which are external to it, i.e. scarcity. From the values of it are the properties that are part of it, such as the spin of the electron, which give rise to the color. For example, the resistance, electronic resistance of gold. It has physical properties which are part of the actual atom, but then have properties which are part of the environment. History, that's an external thing. Scarcity, that's an external thing. So these all come together to give it its value, but these are properties of the thing that we value. Bitcoin has properties because it has a history, it has a reality. It may just think, oh, it's just numbers, but it's not just numbers though. Because, like I always say to people, if it's just numbers, then give me a Bitcoin. There's a reason why you can't just give me a Bitcoin. There's a reason why you can't just wish Bitcoin into existence and give it to me and just distribute it. Because it has properties, it has a history, it has a mechanism, it has a function, and these properties is what gives Bitcoin its value. The property that I can send the transaction when I want to and no one can stop me, that's a property. The ability to receive Bitcoin when I want to, that's a property. The ability to have a multi-signature wallet, that's a property. The ability to flip a coin 156 times and form a wallet to store Bitcoin and a number. These are all properties of the Bitcoin network that make Bitcoin what it is. The fact that it is decentralized, the fact that no one can control it, the fact that all these things make up the package of what Bitcoin is, makes the properties of Bitcoin. Can these properties change? Well, it's decentralized. So if we all agree on a change, then the properties will change. Much like gold, if I split the atom, it will change. It can be done. What's the likelihood of all gold on planet Earth being split into carbon and lithium? Not very likely, although possible. Likewise, I can say that everyone who has Bitcoin, everyone who runs a node, who is invested in those properties, is not likely to want to give that up. So the likelihood of everyone on planet Earth wanting to change the properties of Bitcoin to something else is reached a point now is highly unlikely, much the same. So I would say gold has properties that we value, and Bitcoin has properties that we value. So therefore, to say Bitcoin has no value doesn't make no sense. Even the number one has value because I can use it as a placeholder in mathematics. You can't say it has no value. But again, this comes underneath the understanding the idea, which is not an Islamic idea, by the way. This is an idea. It's not like it came from the heavens that things have intrinsic value, but it's just an idea which people have accepted that there's such a thing as intrinsic value and non-intrinsic value. And this is where a lot of things get stuck.
هي نفسها ما لها قيمة بل قيمتها بمعايير.
So now this is the point here. He said these people, they say that the actual economic value of Bitcoin is zero. And we'll see in this video or this audio or this thing here that unfortunately the Sheikh is using his Islamic knowledge, but he's also taking other knowledge from other areas in his discussion. What are you talking about, brother? I'm talking about economic discussion. Keynesian economics, Austrian economics. What these people say, these economists say, is having an effect on what the Sheikh is saying. Hence why this statement, this economic criteria or economic value is zero. That's a statement, a proposition, or as a value said by some economists, some individuals. Sheikh's taking it as being the truth and issuing a fatwa based on that. I'm sure if the Sheikh said Bitcoin has a value, its value is in its utility, in what it can be done and what it can be, blah, 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 whatever, then he wouldn't say this. But he's accepted the opinion of someone else, which has now affected his fatwa. So back to the point, there's nothing wrong with the Sheikh and what he, as an individual, in his fiqh, anything like that. It's to do with perception. Well, it's to do with, what's the word? Yeah, تصور, perception.
بل قيمتها بالمعيار الاقتصادي صفر. هي نفسها ما لها قيمة بل قيمتها بمعايير الاقتصاديين صفر.
So as you can see, the Sheikh is referencing specialists that he's taken to be reference points in this assessment. So if they say that the economic value of Bitcoin is zero, the Sheikh is using that information and adding it to his fatwa, or that's contributing to his view on Bitcoin. Now, often I say to people, if Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin is zero, then give me something. If it's apparently zero, or the other counter argument would be, I always say to people, okay, so if I offer you one Bitcoin, a whole Bitcoin, consider it zero, would you take it? Obviously they would, and they will sell it, and they'll take the money from it and put it to gold or something. But the point is, they acknowledge indirectly that it has value. But anyway, the point is that's what the Sheikh is referencing. He's referencing certain economists who say that the economic criteria or the value of it is zero. Anyway.
وإنما هي تعتمد على حسابات رقمية معقدة جدا.
And it depends upon, or it leans upon very complicated accounts. Again, we've dealt with the topic of what complicated accounts really means. Maybe what the Sheikh is referring to is mining rather than accounts. Maybe that's what he's referring to. As in Bitcoin mining, the function takes place with complicated, well, not complicated, but basically you have to find the nonce. So the way in which Bitcoin makes or emulates real life is that to find the nonce or to find a new block takes effort. And if it was an issue of calculation, then the problem will be that over time, as computers get better at calculating, then it will become easier to mine Bitcoin. Whereas Bitcoin has what's called a difficulty adjustment, whereby the difficulty should remain the same over time. So even if computers get faster, the difficulty should remain relatively the same. So basically, the mechanism of mining Bitcoin requires you to seek out a random number, a very specific random number, but it's a random number that can't be calculated. It has to be found. So yeah, finding that nonce, finding or completing the block, or finding that specific number to complete the block is difficult. But maybe that's what the Sheikh is referring to, that the act of mining Bitcoin. But like I said, the purpose of the difficulty adjustment is to make sure that the blocks come every 10 minutes. So therefore, the issuance of new Bitcoin comes every 10 minutes, and you can't speed that process up and make it issue faster. That's the reason why it is that way. Now, some have said that the reason that the value of Bitcoin is tied to the cost of mining Bitcoin. Now, definitely there is a connection, but it's more of a chicken and egg situation. Does the price affect mining, or does mining affect the price? To be honest, I think the jury's still out on that one. Some say this, some say that. I do believe that they are connected, they're intertwined, but I wouldn't be able to say that one leads the other. Meaning, if the difficulty gets harder and harder and harder, does that push up the price, or does the price be pushed up lead to it becoming harder and harder and harder? I don't know. But I do think that it's more the case of the mining. I don't know. It's hard to say because it's not immediate. It's not like the difficulty's gone up and then immediately the price goes up. They're not necessarily connected. But anyway, that's explained.
ولا تعتمد على قيمتها.